In China, engineers have built a refrigerator that can detect food going bad before you can even smell it yourself. Not by reading a label with a camera, by actually smelling it. A sensor reads the gases your food gives off as it rots, the cloud your nose catches when milk turns. The fridge in your kitchen can't do that. It's a cold box with a light and maybe a screen on the door. But the appliance industry is splitting in two, and the half that can smell your food is not being built in America. Here's what that sensor is actually doing. Everything in your fridge is breathing out gas. A ripe banana, a piece of fish 2 days past its best, a head of lettuce starting to rot, each one gives off its own specific mix of compounds. Your nose evolved to read those mixes. According to reporting from the appliance testing outlet Reviewed, Here built a concept refrigerator with what engineers call an electronic nose, an olfactory sensor sitting in the crisper drawer. It samples the gas in the compartment, compares that chemical signature against a database of food smells, and works out both what the food is and how far gone it is. Then it tells you, eat the peppers tonight, it says, because tomorrow they're finished. It isn't a simple yes or no either. Freshness is a slope, and the sensor can watch a food slide down it, catching the day something crosses from fine to eat today to not worth the risk. A camera can't do that job, and this is the part Western brands keep missing. A camera reads the label and the printed date on the package. It sees the outside. It has no idea the pepper behind that label started to rot early because the store kept it too warm. Smell reads the actual chemistry of decay, the gases coming off the food itself. The sticker is a guess, a factory printed weeks earlier. The gas coming off the food is what's happening in the drawer today, and only a nose can actually read it. That sounds like a gimmick until you look at how much food you throw away. Heyer's own figures, cited in that same reporting, say close to a third of the groceries people buy in Europe end up in the bin instead of on the stove. In the United States, the number is worse, with nearly half of all groceries wasted. Two things drive that. You forget what's in the fridge, and food goes bad quietly behind the milk before you get to it. A fridge that can smell catches the second problem the moment it starts, days before you would ever open the drawer and notice. And that waste is money walking out with the trash quietly, week after week, in a bag you never even open. So why can't the fridge you own do this? Because Western brands spent the last decade competing on the wrong thing. They added touchscreens, cameras that photograph your shelves, apps that ping your phone. All of that is sight and software wrapped around the same 1800s cooling machine. None of it is a sense of smell. Smelling is genuinely hard. Researchers publishing in the journal Science estimated the human nose can tell apart more than 1 trillion different scents, and teaching a machine even a slice of that means real chemical sensors, not another app update. That is the gap. One side of the industry kept polishing the screen, the other side went and built the nose. And this isn't science fiction pulled from a marketing deck. Teaching machines to smell is a real and fast-moving field. Labs are building artificial noses out of materials called metal organic frameworks, porous structures that trap specific gas molecules, then handing the readings to AI to recognize the pattern. Here's the detail that shows how close the two halves of this story already are. In 2025, a research team released a public smell recognition dataset called SmellNet, and to turn the names of food compounds into their molecular formulas, they used DeepSeek. The same model going into these fridges was already helping a lab teach computers what food is made of. Because the nose is only half of what China wired into these machines, the other half is the brain. If you followed tech news in early 2025, you heard the name DeepSeek, a Chinese company whose AI models rattled the whole industry because they matched Western systems at a fraction of the cost to run. What got less attention outside China is where those models went next. They went into appliances. Reporting on the Chinese electronics sector describes Haier, Hisense, and TCL all folding DeepSeek's AI straight into their fridges, their televisions, and their vacuum cleaners through 2025. And the cost part matters more than it sounds. Western AI models are expensive to run, one that lives in a data center and bills you by the month. DeepSeek's whole shock was doing similar work for far less. Cheap enough to run means cheap enough to build into a machine that has to sell at an appliance price, not a server price. That single fact is what moves this from a luxury showpiece into something that can ship by the millions. Before I go further, if this is the kind of thing you want to keep an eye on, the slow, quiet way Chinese factories are lapping Western brands inside your own kitchen, subscribe, because this channel takes one appliance apart like this every week. Now here's what that AI actually does once it's inside the fridge. Picture the two sensors working together. The nose knows you've got chicken, peppers, and a carton of eggs that need using in the next day. The DeepSeek model takes that inventory and does what a language model does. It reasons. It writes you a recipe out of exactly what's about to expire, adjusts it for how many people you're feeding, and talks back to you in plain speech. Ask it what to make for dinner, and it doesn't hand you a web page of recipes to scroll through. It answers, out loud, using the food you already own before that food is gone. This is the same class of model that, in one widely quoted example from the Chinese press, let a robot vacuum understand an instruction as specific as gently wax the wooden floor in the master bedroom but avoid the Legos. Drop that reasoning into a fridge that already knows what's inside and going off, and you don't have a cold box anymore. You have something closer to a cook that lives in your kitchen and never forgets what you bought. None of this is one clever prototype either. Haier has been laying the groundwork for years. Back at the Shanghai Appliance Expo in 2021, the company launched what it called an Internet of Food refrigerator. And it was the first fridge built to comply with a set of global standards that Haier itself helped write. Then in 2025, the company rolled out something it named AI, giving its appliances machine vision for the first time, and by 2026, it had pushed that to a second version, certified by China's National Appliance Testing Body. Read those moves in order, and you can see the plan. Sight, then smell, then a reasoning brain, stacked one on top of the other year after year. Each layer making the next cheaper to add, while the fridges on the American showroom floor added a slightly bigger touchscreen. There's a reason this keeps running in the same direction. When a Chinese firm helps write the international standard, ships the sensor, and owns a homegrown AI model cheap enough to put in a mid-range appliance, it isn't waiting for anyone's permission to move. It has the standard, the sensor, and the software brain under one roof, and it can move all three at once, while a Western rival is still negotiating with an outside supplier for even one of them. The Western brands are not asleep because they're lazy. They're stuck defending an old machine and an old business. And the hardest thing for a company that dominates a market is to admit the market is quietly shifting under its feet. So the next time you stand in front of your refrigerator, deciding whether the leftovers are still good by lifting the lid and taking a careful sniff, understand that you're doing by hand the exact job a fridge in China is already doing on its own, chemically, continuously, and then cooking dinner around the answer. The cold box in your kitchen was the finish line for one industry. In another country, it was the starting line. And the distance between those two ideas is being measured right now, one quiet appliance at a time, in a race most people in the West don't know has started.